Amidst the final battle for the control of the universe, all of humanity's forces were destroyed by the gods. But a lone warrior still held onto his hope and activated the Spiral Galaxy's mecha to establish humanity's last stand. For the last millennia, the Emperor of the world had committed genocide on humanity, as their population couldn't exceed 1 million, because it would bring the day when the moon would become the world's hell messenger, and their entire population would be destroyed. Years had passed since then, and in their new lives, humanity lived day after day digging tunnels with drills to expand their village, and to find items worthy of being collected. One day, as Simon ignored Minecraft's #1 rule to not dig straight down, he found the ignition key of an ancient weapon of war, and the village chief used him as an example to tell others to work hard. Simon made the drill into a locket, and when girls looked at his dirty clothes and body, they thought he was disgusting for always being covered in animal shit. Even though he was disheartened by their comments, he silently walked away, and ran into the built like a depressed toilet brush dude called Kamina, who told him to walk with his head held high. Before long, he took Simon to his allies and revealed the plan to escape to the surface by destroying the ceiling of the underground city. They were sick of living a cramped-up life without achieving anything, so by deliberately letting a horde of pigs escape, they caused havoc in the city and wanted Simon to use his drill to bust through the ceiling to get to the surface. After reaching its center, the pigs lined up on top of each other to help the morons get to the ceiling, but the village chief knocked all of them back and told them the surface didn't exist. However, Kamina claimed that he had seen the surface with his father when he was a child, but the chief revealed that he died buried in a pile of rocks while drilling. He reminded them the underground city was all they had, and for generations, people lived inside it without anyone trying to go to the surface. But suddenly, an earthquake shook the foundations of the city, and everyone ran inside their homes. Simon felt scared to death, and wanted to run, but Kamina knew that he was scared because his parents were killed because of a similar earthquake. Hugging him, he asked the villagers if they planned to keep living in fear of earthquakes day after day. But the chief had the duty to look after the welfare of his people, and threatened to throw everyone out of the city who would even think about causing a revolt. While Kamina was imprisoned in a cell, Simon kept digging through the earth at night, and found a mecha called the Lagon. As everyone went to sleep in the underground city, Simon freed Kamina from his cell, as he wanted him to see the mecha, but the village chief caught them, when suddenly, an earthquake shook the whole city, and a mecha gunman dropped inside from the ceiling. Thinking that it must be the mecha that Simon was trying to show him, Kamina proudly pointed upward, saying that the mecha came from the surface. When the mecha stood up and attacked the villagers, everyone ran away in horror, and Kamina took the chief's katana to battle the mecha by himself. As he was talking about how great he was, everyone thought that he must be the biggest dumb to exist on the whole planet. But Simon, on the other hand, was in awe of him. The gunman got ready to end his yapping ass, but a red-haired hottie ziplined to the city from the surface while shooting the mecha with her supercharged rifle, and everyone realized that the surface truly existed. She managed to knock the mecha on its back, but it got back up once again because Simon's level 69 horny aura after seeing Yoko gave it energy. When it attacked them, Simon pulled all of them underground, and while they traveled through the tunnel, Yoko revealed that she originally hailed from Littner, the city next door to Gia City. They reached a window, and Yoko got ready for a perfect shot to take down the gunman. But the dumbass made her miss her shot, and they were forced back into the tunnels. Simon took all of them to see the mecha he had found, and wanted to use it to get out of danger. The drill on his neck started to glow when he got inside the mecha, and Simon asked Kamina to pilot it, but he refused as the mecha didn't belong to him. As the gunman continued wreaking havoc in the city, Kamina made Simon believe in himself by motivating him, and he finally decided to use the mecha himself. Inserting the drill key inside it, he booted the mecha, and after it transformed, they used it to exit the tunnels and face the gunman. When it attacked them, they dodged in the air, but the gunman punched them, and while Simon was slammed against a rock wall, Yoko and Kamina fell on the monster mecha's head. It tried to grab them, but they were constantly avoiding its hand, and regaining consciousness, Simon finally managed to muster up the courage to fight, and pushed its hand back. He put the two inside the mecha just before they got attacked, and because of the recoil of its own attack, the gunman was knocked out. Its teeth were as strong as diamonds, and the three dumbasses thought that it was dead, but the gunman grabbed them with its sharp teeth. However, Simon was able to break free by creating a drill on his mecha's forehead, and powering up to the maximum. He destroyed the mecha's arm, and continued to use the momentum to drill the monster mecha to the surface. As everyone looked at them in awe, Simon kept drilling upwards, and when they finally exited the tunnel, the monster mecha was smashed into bits, and they finally saw the outside world for the first time in their life. They were mesmerized by its beauty, and the five of them decided to introduce themselves to each other, the two being Yoko's meatbags with a lot of jiggle physics. However, the brainless morons forgot that they were in the air, and when they fell on the ground, Simon found his head between Yoko's cushioning, and turned red with shame, but she pulled his head back back in there as 2 more gunmen were towering over them. When they attacked them, Simon barely managed to escape and started running away from them. However, he was scared and wanted to dig his way back into Gia City, but Kamina told him not to lose his nerve and exited the mecha to battle them himself. But when the gunmen attacked him, Simon saved his sorry ass again, and Kamina asked him how long he planned to run. Simon started flying, and when Yoko fired at them, the mecha did a front flip because of the recoil, and Yoko continued shooting at the mecha with her supercharged rifle. However, at that instant, Lagan ran out of power, and even Yoko's weapon was out of bullets. But her friends protected them by shooting at the gunmen mechas, and as one of them was about to get destroyed, a beastman escaped from it, and the other mecha carried it away while everyone kept shooting at it. Yoko told Kamina that the beastman piloted the mechas on the surface, and as the night approached, Kamina praised Simon for saving them, and thanked him. An ugly femboy with a big forehead named Ron couldn't get enough of how pretty Lagan was, and as Yoko told them about the stars and the moon, Ron showed them a device to monitor the mechas. However, the 2 illiterate morons couldn't read, and Ron revealed that it was possible that people lived on the surface in the past. He kept hitting on Kamina, and offered to show him what his fingers could do, so Kamina was about to chop his head off until Yoko stopped him. Afterward, everyone traveled to go back to their hideout, and on their way, they stumbled upon a skull, and decided to give it a proper burial. However, Kamina thought that it was a waste of time to dig graves for someone who was already dead, and told everyone that he would never die before he unlocked the mysteries of the universe. After traveling for some time, they finally reached the hideout, and Yoko brought the 2 of them some food, but they were dead asleep after working their ass off the whole day. While sleeping, Kamina saw the memory of his father leaving him to roam around the surface, and the following morning, they abruptly woke up after a gunman landed near the hideout. They ignored it at first, but when another one arrived, Yoko thought that they probably wanted to take revenge for yesterday, and gave Kamina a gun to fight them. Simon asked him once again to pilot the mecha, but he smacked his back, and told him to do it himself before going away. While Simon was trying to start Lagan, another huge mecha dropped from the sky, making him realize that the earthquakes in the underground city were caused by these tremors from the gunmen's landings. His parents were killed because of them, and as he screamed in anger, the forces lured the mechas into a canyon, and tried to trap them in it by blasting the cliffs. However, they were able to break free from it, and when they escaped, Kamina decided he would pull the beastman out of the mecha and pilot it himself. So when Simon appeared, he rode on his mecha, and they jumped in the air to dodge the gunman's attack. However, they were about to get punched in the air, but Yoko protected them, and made the gunman punch his ally. Kamina dropped on enemy mecha, and while trying to open its mouth with his gun, the dumb fuck almost killed himself with it. The other gunman was about to squash his body, but Simon stopped it, and after destroying its arm with Lagan's drill, he opened the mecha's mouth, allowing Kamina to get inside it. However, the mecha rejected him, and the other mechas thought the 2 had killed their commander, so they started to beat the living shit out of Kamina. Simon wanted to protect him, but he got tossed in the air, and when Kamina fell on the ground, his head landed on top of a skeleton, and he reminded himself not to end up like the skeleton in the middle of nowhere. With his newfound resolve, he finally managed to take control of the mecha, and when Simon was about to get stomped on, he drop-kicked the gunmen's, and punched them afterward, but his arm and leg were destroyed in the process. They were both sent flying into the canyon, and when Simon finally woke up, Kamina grabbed his mecha into his hand, and tossed him toward the gunman like a cannonball. However, when he mixed his mark, the gunmen started dancing in amusement, but Simon dug through the mountain to destroy them from behind, and their leader ran away to save his ass. Yoko couldn't help but feel that the 2 were special, as no one in history had been able to control a beastman's mecha. Kamina named his mecha Gurren, and that night, everyone went to the skeleton that Kamina landed on to give it a burial. But when he saw the bracelet on the skeleton's arm, and a familiar cape on its back, he realized that the skeleton was his dad who went to buy milk and never returned. He screamed in pain, and later going back into the hideout, he kept boasting about his battle to other people. Unlike him, Simon remained reserved, and Yoko asked him if Kamina was okay, as she thought that he was hiding his pain by pretending not to care. Simon agreed with what she said, and on the next morning, Ron had combined all 3 of the gunman mechas to form a new mecha for Kamina. It even had the logo of Gurren Lagann on it, and when Yoko came, she asked Kamina to join her in the hunt for food, and maybe hunt her chastity later. He agreed, but when he asked Simon to tag along, Yoko got pissed, but she just went away with it. Reaching the hideout of the monsters, she checked them out through the scope of her rifle, while telling the 2 the village she belonged to was a weapon cache from centuries ago, and she found her rifle there. When she killed a monster with an arrow, she revealed that since the rifle was powered by electricity, she could swap out arrows for bullets, and was allowed to keep using it since she was the best marksman among the people. She offered to let Kamina give it a try, who surprised her by shooting a flying monster in the sky right in the middle of its body. However, when he went to retrieve his food, he noticed that it had another arrow impaled in it, and barely dodged an arrow that came from the tall grass. He managed to shoot the target's bow, but it was all a bait from Viral, so he could try to chop him off with his butcher knife. However, Kamina was able to dodge at the last second, and Viral revealed that he belonged to the human eradication forces. He wanted Kamina to hand over the bird back to him, as he shot it first, but the bird was still alive, and when Viral was about to attack him again, Kamina unsheathed his katana. He swung at Viral, but all he was able to cut was some grass, and Violet overwhelmed him with a flurry of strikes, scratching his skin multiple times in the process. However, Kamina used an arrow hidden in his pants to cut his face, and when Viral was about to attack him again, Simon protected him, and Yoko forced Viral back with her rifle. But they didn't expect him to enter a huge as fuck mecha, so Simon took Kamina to Gurren, and the two could communicate with each other inside their mecha thanks to Ron. Unlike Kamina, Simon was scared to fight Viral's mecha since it was huge, but Kamina told him to grow some balls, and went forward without a thought in his mind to battle it. He headbutted Viral, and tried to punch him, but he slammed Kamina with a hammer punch, and kicked him away. Simon rushed to attack Viral with the drill on Lagan's head, but Viral released projectiles to knock him back. With no other option, Kamina tossed Simon toward Viral like he did with the other mechas, but he was ready for it, and kicked Simon away when he tried to impale him from behind. When Kamina tried to use the distraction to attack him, Viral knocked him off balance, and punching his guts, he sent him flying toward a rock wall. To finish them off, he used his ultimate energy beam attack, but when the dust cleared, he realized that the two mastered the art of running away from responsibilities just like his father. Simon had dug a tunnel through the mountain to escape, and Yoko breathed a sigh of relief seeing them, but the little dude was scared out of oblivion. That night, he told Kamina that he wanted to go back to his village, as the beastmen had tough people on their side, and he didn't want to see Kamina or himself die. However, Kamina reminded him that he was destined for greatness, and when he went back to the hideout, Yoko asked him to let her pilot Lagan instead of Simon, as he could get killed because of him in their next fight. But Kamina believed in his little brother, and thought that he would pull through at the last second. Yoko called him a dumbass for having so much faith in him, but Kamina got to where he was because of Simon, and believing in him allowed him to believe in himself. The next day, he stood in front of the hideout with Gurren to protect everyone from Viral's attack. But Simon's mecha wasn't starting because he was scared, and Yoko vowed to stand her ground and protect her home even if she would die in the process. Soon after, Viral caused a tremor with his landing, and humanity soldiers started firing at him. But he wasn't hurt at all, and when he knocked them away with projectiles, Kamina attacked him. But Viral launched him in the air, and sent him flying with a kick. Yoko tried shooting his head, but he created a steel shield to protect him, and slammed Kamina on the ground. He kept kicking him mercilessly, and blasted him with a barrage of missiles, but all that time, Simon couldn't bring up the courage to help him. So Yoko told him that Kamina was getting up again and again even when he was bleeding, just because he believed in Simon. And hearing these words, Simon finally started Lagan. Meanwhile, Viral praised Kamina's ability to receive a good ass whooping, and when he tried to punch him, he dodged and threw him towards a mountain. As everyone looked at Gurren in horror, Viral charged his ultimate again. But Simon hit his head with a surprise attack from the ground, causing him to miss his ultimate move. Kamina felt a new ray of hope when Simon finally came, and asked him to combine their mechas together. Everyone was mesmerized by his idea, but when he just shoved Lagan in his head, they all wondered if there was a limit to how dumb one person could be. When Viral attacked them with an energy beam, Simon summoned a light barrier to block the attack, and the two finally merged into each other to form the ultimate god of war mecha. They cross-punched each other's faces, but their punch was way stronger than his, and after putting Viral's helmet on their head, they transformed further, and Viral was forced to use his secret katanas to battle them. However, Kamina summoned drills through his hand to destroy the swords, and realizing that he couldn't beat them, Viral attacked them with a barrage of missiles, and used the smoke cloud as cover to escape. Kamina wanted to chase him, but Simon told him that he was in bad shape, so it was best for them not to chase Viral. That night, everyone rejoiced because of their victory, and Yoko apologized to Simon for saying bad things about him to Kamina. While repairing their mechas, Ron found the locations of the gunmen's headquarters, and after Kamina said goodbye to his father, he and Simon got ready to infiltrate the headquarters themselves. But Ron couldn't let them go alone, as they needed a top-rate mechanic to repair their mechas, and when the three of them began their journey, Yoko got sad seeing them leaving. So Dayaka told her to go with them, and vowed to protect everyone until she would return. Together, they traveled to take the fight to the gunmen, but walking under the sun exhausted them fast. While they were taking a break, Kamina asked Simon to train with him so they could do a manly combining, as the last one embarrassed him so much that he couldn't look at himself. He wanted Simon to jump on his shoulder with his mecha, and when he refused, he hurled boulders at him to convince him, and one of his boulders destroyed Ron's favorite pet robot. As Simon kept running away from him, four siblings looked at them from top of a cliff, and thinking that a gunman was attacking a human, They threw bombs at Kamina and rode beasts to protect the little human. Hio tried to calm Simon down by shoving his face between her cushioning, and Kamina tried to get up, but Gurren wouldn't start because he was hungry. When he exited the mecha, Kitten called him a beastman, so he punched his stupid face and told him to get his eyes checked by a doctor. The three girls were Kitten's siblings, and they were so impressed by Kamina's manliness that all of their floodgates opened. Simon felt miserable when they left him, and the girls apologized to Kamina for thinking that he was a beastman. The siblings called themselves the Black Siblings Beastman Hunters, and when Kitten saw his sisters drooling over Kamina, he got angry and challenged him into a fist fight. But Yoko fired a warning shot to stop him, and the boys started sweating in fear of her. Afterward, the girls ventured into the barren wasteland to find food for everyone, and found a pond that indicated that animals must be nearby. Spotting some birds, Yoko grabbed her rifle to shoot some of them down, but the siblings found a peculiar monster and thought that they could eat it. Meanwhile, after learning that they were going towards the Beastmen's headquarters, Kitten thought that they were going ahead of themselves if they thought that they could defeat the Beastmen, as the infamous 16-headed gunmen lived there. When the girls came back, all of them got ready to eat what they thought was some strange kind of plant. But when Simon tried to bite it, they realized that it was alive, and the creature started cursing him. However, when Kamina was going to eat them alive, the monster ran away with his kin, and Kitten started chasing them, as he realized that they were the 16-faced beastmen. As the black siblings approached them on their weird horses, the beastmen entered their mechas and rolled away to escape. At the same time, Kamina told Simon to enter his mecha, and Yoko protected him while he ran toward Gurren. However, he was going to get crushed by the gunmen, so Kitten saved his ass by throwing bombs at it, allowing him to get inside Gurren. Simon, who had already entered Lagun, tried to combine with Kamina, but he tossed him away and got smacked in the back by the gunman. Simon asked what he was trying to do, so Kamina told him that he wanted to combine manly, and they were both blasted away by the leader of the Beastmen. Calling all of its kin, it transformed into the 16-face Calamity ranked mecha, and as Kamina was bitching about his manly combination, it launched its arm towards him and dropped him into the ground. Simon rushed to help him, and realizing that they would die if they didn't combine, he climbed Gurren, but Kamina knocked him away again, and Yoko got pissed at his dumbass for crying like a little bitch. When Buddha licked him to make him get up, Simon wondered what was the manly combining thing Kamina was talking about, and finally realized that he wanted him to jump on him. As he was getting overrun by the beastmen, Simon rushed toward him, but he got blasted by the 16-faced mecha and fell on the ground. Realizing that he was about to get killed, Yoko came with Kitten to help him, and telling him to run away. She shot Kitten's bomb to cause a diversion, but the three girls were attacked by the gunmen as a result. Because of that, Simon ran towards Kamina, and after dodging the attack and jumping on top of Gurren, the two combined their mecha into the ultimate machine of war. To battle them, the beastmen transformed as well, and as they were battling each other, Kitten looked for his sisters but couldn't find them anywhere. Meanwhile, Simon and Kamina were being pushed back because they were hungry, and the mecha couldn't obtain the necessary strength for them. So Buddha bit his own tail to provide them with nutrients and powering up to the maximum. They knocked the Calamity rank mecha back. It started to revolve around Gurren Lagann to confuse the two, but Kamina summoned drills from his arms and skewered all the faces of the gunmen like a meat stick, destroying all of them in an instant. The beastmen were without their mechas now, so they ran away, and when the three girls appeared, Kitten couldn't hold back his tears seeing that they were all right. They all rushed toward Kamina and Simon to thank them for protecting their lives, and Ron thought that he would have to spend the whole night repairing the mechas of those dumb morons. With the fight over, the black siblings said goodbye to their saviors, and went their own way under the golden light of the setting sun. The following morning, Kamina and Yoko patrolled the area for other gunmen, and when she accidentally sat on his head, he dissed her flat ass, and she got ready to pass divine judgment upon him. As Ron was teaching Simon stuff about the mechas, Kamina begged to save him from the crazy bitch, and because of their fight, they accidentally fell into a deep hole through the earth and arrived in an underground village. The people of that village considered mecha as gods, and thought that everything on the surface belonged to them. They had a mecha head inside their village that they worshipped, and since Simon and the rest came from the outside, the people thought of them as messengers of the face god. Two disgusting orphans named Gimme and Derry kept bugging them with questions about the celestial land on the surface, so Rasu ordered them to go away, as they were bothering the guests. He told the others that the face god was their deity, and asked Yoko to cover herself, since her jiggle physics was distracting him. So she put on the villager's attire, but Kamina was so used to seeing her plot all the time that he lifted her dress, so she kicked him into the ground, and called him a disgusting hopeless scum of the earth. Rasu asked them to stop the violent and lewd behavior, as the people of the village looked at them as Celestians who traveled in the company of the face god. As he was explaining their religion to them, a boy came and told Rasu that triplets were born in the city. Since the high priest named Mage only let 50 people stay in the village, they had to send 2 people on the outside world to maintain rations for everyone. but Majin portrayed it as a blessing for the people to go outside into the world of gods. Kamina and the rest were given fish skeletons as food, and he complained about it. But all they had in their city was a tiny pond and a broken gunman, so even skeletons were a luxury for them. When Rasu came and requested them to tell him about the celestial lands, Kamina told him that the big head wasn't their god. But the people of that city had believed in that their whole life. Their village was on the brink of collapse, but when Majin took administration of the village, things got better. He apologized to everyone in Rasu's stead, saying that he lacked the brain cells to comprehend their divine words, and introduced himself as the governor of the city. When Kamina got in his face, he told Rasu to go away, and let their guests rest for the night to get away from Kamina, who was pissed at him for his holier-than-thou attitude. However, before going to sleep, Rasu decided to pay his blessings to the face god, and he noticed a lever in its nose. He pulled it, and when that opened the face, he saw a cockpit inside it, and Kamina was surprised that the big head still worked, so he told Rasu to take it for a spin. But before he could give them an answer, Majin appeared and scolded him for touching their god. Kamina was pissed at Majin, as he reminded him of his village chief, but the governor told him to leave the village if they had no further business and went away. Summoning his whole village, he asked everyone to pick sticks from a box one by one, as this was his way of choosing the 2 people who would have to go to the surface. Everyone picked the sticks, and when only 2 of them were left, Gimme and Derry picked them up, and they were revealed to be the 2 villagers who would be blessed with the chance to go outside. Rasu asked Kamina and the rest to take the kids with them, and told them that whenever the village's population exceeded 50, some people would be chosen to be the god's children, and sent to the outside. However, they couldn't take the kids with them, as it wasn't a place for them to goof around, so Majin decided that he would send the kids to the surface by conducting a ceremony as usual. He believed that the people who were sent outside would get free from the sorrows of life, and stay together with the gods in happiness. But Kamina thought all of his words were horse shit, and Gimme and Derry begged them to take them outside, but he told them that they were better off staying where they were. When Majin asked him to stop berating their religion, Kamina got pissed, and told everyone that their governor was feeding them a load of crap. His words made Rasu angry, and he wanted to fight Kamina, who kept teasing him to show what he had, but Majin told him that the celestial beings were just testing them. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a gunman dropped into the village, and everyone thought of it as a god. But knowing that it was a gunman piloted by a beastman, Yoko shot at it, and Kamina and Simon got into their mechas before combining them together into the ultimate war machine. They battled the gunman, and Kamina told all the villagers to get out, as they would die if they stayed around them. Rasu tried to flee as well, but he got stunned in his place when he saw the face god rising up, and Kamina told the villagers once again that the gunmen were enemies of humanity. As they continued fighting it, the face god dropped its body on them, and the gunmen attacked it with a flurry of strikes, but the face god punched it to push it back towards a waterfall. Before it could get up, the face god tackled the gunman to make it fall into an endless abyss, and with the fight over, the face god opened its mouth, and Rasu saw Majin piloting it. He asked him what was going on, but he suddenly started to fall toward the hole, so Simon grabbed the face god at the last second, and Majin told everyone that he just mimicked what Kamina and Simon were doing. He begged them to leave the village, and not disturb the village more than they already had, but Kamina refused to do that. Later, as Rasu was patching Majin's injuries, he asked him to tell the truth to his people, but Majina knew that it would put the people in disarray. Their village didn't have the resources to sustain a large population, so the first thing he did when he became the governor was to set a limit of 50 people who could stay in the village. He kept everything to himself all that time, and used religion as a tool, as he knew that the village would be annihilated if he didn't remain strict. He even chose to send Gimme and Derry outside because they had no family, and not a lot of people would grieve about them. When Rasu heard that, he realized that Majin had sent his mother to her death by doing the same to her, and he apologized to him for that. The next day, the children were ready to be sent outside, but Rasu wanted to go with those children to give them a better chance for survival, and planned to make the surface a home for humanity, so nobody would have to stay in the underground villages. Majin accepted his request, and asked him to take the holy scripture with him, but Rasu didn't know how to read. Majin didn't know how to read it as well, but he still wanted him to take it outside as a gift, and when the 3 reached the surface, they saw Kamina and the rest waiting to welcome them. After meeting up with the 3, everyone looked around for a facility that was large enough to launch gunmen, and even when they could see it moving on a map, they couldn't find it anywhere. As everyone was talking about the possibility of their data being corrupted, Yoko struggled to breathe because they were all inside Gurren, and everyone kept farting endlessly. So they asked her if something was wrong, but she blasted all of them, and told the dirty fucks to take a shower once in a while. At that moment, several bunny gunmen landed near them, so Kamina and Simon went toward Gurren Lagann. And after that dumbass made a lengthy speech about how awesome he was, he brought the gunmen down in an instant. However, another bunny was about to eat Rasu and the kids, but Yoko shot it down, and the last gunman ran for its life. Kamina wanted to kill it instantly, but when Rossiu said that they could follow it to reach the gunman's headquarters, they followed it and got stuck in a thick foggy area. They looked around to get their sense of direction, and saw an old geezer standing in front of them, so they asked him what he was doing in that thick fog. But he didn't answer and pointed towards a direction, so they followed it and reached a blatantly suspicious building. Rossiu wanted to investigate it first, but all those dumb fucks went inside it without a thought in their head, and got greeted by bunny girls with huge jiggly wigglies. The boys thought that they were in heaven, and an old ugly hag welcomed them, saying that the heroics of Team Gurren had gotten famous among the humans, and she wanted to give them all a reward. She had prepared a lavish dinner for them, but since it looked fishy, Rossiu felt sus about it. But the others had already finished 90% of the food before he could warn them. As everyone was eating to their fill, the three sisters of the black siblings greeted their meat provider Kamina, and all of their floodgates opened seeing him. Yoko felt jealous seeing all those girls cuddling with Kamina, and Simon asked why the kitten wasn't with the girls. So they revealed that he had something to take care of, and they were waiting for him on the surface. However, they were attacked by gunmen, and just like Team Gurren, they chased the last remaining bunny, and got lost in the thick fog before the old man guided them to that location. When all of them finished their food, the old hag told them to soak away their battle fatigue at the hot springs, and Kamina thought that he was going to have the time of his life. But the hot springs were separated by gender. While taking a bath, Kamina pointed to the full moon, and expressed his desire to travel to the moon one day. Simon thought that the last intact screw in his brain finally got loose, but for Kamina, nothing was impossible as long as they gave it their best. When he said that, even Simon thought that they could eventually leave the planet, and as they continued discussing their plans for the future, Simon noticed that the girls' hot spring was unusually quiet. So he helped Kamina up a wall to check, but he saw that nobody was present at the hot spring. Suddenly, the old hag transformed into a beastman, and after revealing that the pond was a part of her mecha, she threw the two out through a hole. The girls were trapped inside the gunman, and Simon and Kamina rushed to get inside their mechas, but some bunnies ran away with Gurren, and as Rossiu was coming to their location, he saw those bunnies running with Gurren. Meanwhile, Yoko was pissed that they had lured a beautiful girl like her into a trap, and while Kamina jumped on the gunman, she destroyed the cage to free everyone, and got inside the building. The bunny girls transformed into beasts, and as everyone fought with the beast bunny girls, Simon and Ron were about to be squashed by the gunmen, but an explosion stopped it when the others had reached the control room after defeating the beastmen. When some hot bunny girls ganged up on Kamina, he got angry because such beautiful busty creations of God were his enemy, and knocked all of them away. Simon rushed to rescue them from the control room, and after they all squeezed together in its little cockpit, he jumped in the air and saw Rossiu waiting for them with Gurren. Wasting no time, Simon combined with it, and once Kamina was inside Gurren, he used huge glasses to smash the gunmen into bits. Yoko started jumping for joy, but when her plot coverage got undone, the boys saw a glimpse of her huge illuminating globes, and she ran away in embarrassment. At that instant, they were blasted by an explosion from afar, and when Kamina got up, he saw Viral who had come to take his revenge. Calling Kamina a naked buffin, he commanded them to give back his helmet, but he had the dignity to not fight them until they wore some clothes. As he fought with Gurren Lagann, Kamina called him dumb for giving them time to collect themselves, but a victory without a proper fight would have given Viral no honor. He knocked them in the air with his slash, and as they were rolling in the air, he jumped to split them in half with his katana. But Kamina caught it with Gurren's teeth, and Viral smashed them onto the ground, causing a huge explosion. As they were on their faces, he ordered them to return his helmet, but Kamina told him to take it by force, and cut his katanas with drills. They had made enemies with the capital of the gunmen by attacking Viral, and as he boasted about the power of the capital, a literal nuke hit them from far away, and everyone saw a huge gunman approaching them. It was big as a mountain, and attacked Gurren Lagann with firepower that no human had seen before. Using the opportunity, Viral used the weapon on his mecha's head to attack them, and the mobile fortress gunman Dai Gunzen towered over them with its huge body. Ron realized that the enemy base they were looking for was actually Dai Gunzen, and Kamina got ready to engage it, as no matter how big it was still operated by someone. However, Yoko wanted him to get back because it was dangerous engaging it, and even Simon tried to put some sense in Kamina's brain with no brain cells, but he was bent on fighting it no matter what. Thymulf, one of the 4 generals of the Spiral King, warned the puny humans that they had incurred the wrath of their leader, so he had come to show them their place. He started blasting them with explosives from the huge cannons, and they were sent flying in the air before crashing to the ground. So Yoko begged Kamina to get back, but being the mad lad he was, he went to fight Dai Gunzen once again. However, Gurren Lagann's leg got injured, and everyone told Kamina to give up and formulate a proper strategy to defeat their enemy that was too strong for them. But he used his fighting spirit to repair the leg, and rushed at Dai Gunzen once again. As they were getting blasted by its cannon, Kamina thought of a way to get on the huge mecha, and Thymulf hit them with a nuke. A huge dust cloud was created as a result. They were knocked in the air by the explosion, but took the opportunity to fly towards the base of Dai Gunzen. Thymulf shot them with every cannon of his mecha, but they maneuvered around the blasts and slammed Viral to the ground with a kick. The others were watching that fight from afar, but Thymulf had noticed them and threw gunmens at them, as he intended to end all of them. Yoko shot at them with a pistol since she didn't have her rifle with them, and as they were about to get smashed, a mysterious mecha destroyed all the gunmen's one by one, and when its cockpit opened, everyone saw Kitten coming out of it. At the same time, Kamina and Simon focused their attention on Thymulf, and thought that he wouldn't blast them when they were on top of it, but when they tried to attack it, Thymulf slapped them with Dai Gunzen's arm, and threw them around like a toy. He had grabbed both of Gurren Lagann's legs, and was splitting them in half, but Dayaka saved the two by firing at its hand with his cannon. Kitten was with him as well in his own mecha, and Yoko revealed that people were inspired by Kamina, so everyone was trying to copy him, and several more of their friends were on their way to assist them in battle. Getting pissed that some mere humans were giving him a tough time, Thymulf shot at them, and summoned more gunmen to annihilate them. As all of those gunmen were beating the shit out of Gurren Lagann, Yoko begged Kamina to retreat for now, saying that he needed to stay alive to lead their new friends. But he was never the one to run away from a fight. When they got knocked away, Simon asked Kamina to retreat just for once in his life. But Kamina knew that they couldn't run away from that behemoth gunman even if they tried. At that moment, Simon thought of a plan to bring it down, and when he told Kamina about it, he let him take control of Gurren Lagann, and he started to lure Dai Gunzen away. It blasted them with all the cannons on top of it, but Simon dodged them and shot bombs around it while escaping. When they got trapped at the edge of a cliff, Viral thought that they were finally done for, but Simon triggered the bombs by digging into the earth, and Dai Gunzen fell into a cave created by the blast. As it was falling, Viral warned them Dai Gunzen was merely a fraction of the total power of the capital, so their temporary victory was nothing. Afterward, Simon and Kamina retreated to their allies, and saw 6 new gunmen who had joined their squad. At night, Ron repaired Gurren, and Dayaka revealed that when all the people of his village traveled to Jiha village, the fighters went in search of gunmen, so they could capture them just like Kamina did. The pilots of those gunmen introduced themselves to everyone one by one, and as their leader, Kamina greeted all of them with a lengthy speech, and revealed his plans to capture Dai Gunzen and make it their new headquarters. When Simon asked how he planned to do that, Kamina pointed towards him, and Ron told everyone that when their mechas combine, it was accomplished by Lagann taking over Gurren's system. It was Lagann's true ability, so if he had the necessary mental strength, Simon could control Dai Gunzen. Later, as Kamina was watching the full moon on Gurren, Yoko went to meet him, and he told her that he needed to keep on winning so he could give everyone a world where they could walk freely without any worry. She praised him for his wishful thinking, and truly respected him. But even so, she didn't want him to do anything crazy like his last fight again. Up until now, there was always a method to his madness, but during the last fight, he rushed in there without any thoughts. And if Simon wasn't there, he might have been killed, and that frightened Yoko. Suddenly, a huge volcano burst in the distance, and everyone looked at it with awe. But Simon was scared, so Yoko went to him, and learning that he wasn't able to sleep, she realized that he was under a lot of pressure. However, he couldn't sleep because he was in love with her, but he struggled to confess it, and talked to her about Kamina to distract himself. Before leaving, Yoko gave him a cup of tea, and went to Ron, who had upgraded her rifle for their next fight. She hadn't let anyone tinker with her rifle until today, but she knew that failure wasn't an option in their next fight, and Simon and Kamina couldn't defeat Dai Gunzen by themselves. Afterward, she went to meet Kamina while he was munching on food, and kissed him out of nowhere. He was surprised at first, but since he also had feelings for her, the two embraced each other, and Kamina told her that he would repay the kiss by destroying her back after their fight. Unbeknownst to them, Simon was watching them from the bushes, and ran away to curl up in his mecha because he loved Yoko, and couldn't see her being with someone else. When Kamina came to him, he got startled, and the ugly dumbass told him to give his best tomorrow. The following day, he revealed the plan to distract Dai Gunzen with all the gunmen they had, and allow Simon to use Lagann to get to Dai Gunzen's head so he could combine with it. When he would do that, they would use the behemoth mecha to crush the rest of the gunmen, and everyone got excited hearing his plan. With everything ready and explained, the gunmen pilots started their journey to the battle, and Yoko hopped on Iraq's mecha. The rest of their allies wished everyone the best, and reaching the cave, Kamina ordered everyone to attack. But Viral and the rest knew that they were going to sneak up on them. However, Kamina already suspected that, and all of them threw huge boulders from the top of the cliff to decimate the enemy gunmen. However, Viral was able to cut them with his katanas, and when Kamina made fun of his pointy-toothed ass, he got angry. But Thymulf told him not to get riled up over what Kamina was saying, as their attacks couldn't even put a dent on his mecha. However, when Dayaka blasted him with the cannon on his mecha, he got pissed himself, and ordered the gun ports to throw all the firepower at the enemy. He proceeded to launch the gunmen towards the enemy, and Yoko managed to shoot 4 of them with her rifle. but Viral blocked the rest of her shots, and Kamina rushed to deal with him himself. As they were face to face with each other, Viral wondered why the head on its top was missing, and Kamina told Simon to get to Daigunzen. Drilling through the earth, Simon went on Daigunzen's blind spot on top of it, and drilled into the control room. When Viral asked what he was trying to do, Kamina revealed that they were trying to merge Lagan with the behemoth to take control of it, and it made him feel frustrated. So he attacked Kamina, but he retaliated by overwhelming him with strikes, and Viral wondered how he got so good in such a short time. When a gunman tried to ambush him, Yoko shot at it, as she had promised to cover his back so he could fight Viral without worrying. Meanwhile, Koega took 2 gunmen down himself, but Simon accidentally shot at him because he couldn't control Daigunzen properly. He didn't combine with the behemoth smoothly, and Rossiu wondered if he was worrying about something, as Lagan's power was tied to his mental state. At the same time, Fimulf realized that the enemy had taken control of Daigunzen, so he went towards his Mecha Byaku to pulverize his enemies. Since Simon was struggling to take control of it, Kamina told him to get his head together, but the sight of Yoko kissing him kept him from concentrating. Noticing that they had failed their plan, Viral ordered all the gunmen to retreat to Daigunzen, but Kamina stopped him, and ordered his allies to keep the gunmen pinned while he would take care of Simon. Jumping on the behemoth, he rushed towards Simon, and when he opened the hatch, Kamina punched his useless face. He warned Simon that if he ever lost sight of his goal, he would punch him again, because Kamina knew what he was truly capable of. With that, Simon finally managed to take full control of Daigunzen, and Kamina went back in Gurren, but Fimulf attacked him from underneath. As he was dangling in the air, Viral smashed him with his huge sunglasses, and Fimulf used his glaive to destroy his leg. However, Kamina refused to go down, so while Viral held Gurren in his place, Fimulf stabbed him in the chest, and almost split him into 2 pieces. Everyone thought that he had died, as all readings of him and his mecha went 0, so Simon in his frustration let Daigunzen go out of control, and razed the ground by firing all the cannons on it aimlessly. The volcanoes nearby covered the ground in magma, and while Simon smashed Viral into the sky, the rest begged him to pull himself together as he was heading straight into the mouth of a volcano. Bleeding from everywhere on his body, Kamina thought that he had to do everything by himself, so when Simon had lost all his hope, Kamina punched him again with Gurren's arm, and reminded him of their ambition to conquer everything. Realizing that he was still alive, Simon finally got back to his senses, and told his allies to get on board Daigunzen as it was under his control. However, Fimulf blasted all of them to stop them from grouping up, so Kamina told Simon to combine into Gurren Lagann once again. So he rushed toward him with the huge sunglasses, and when the two combined, all their allies screamed in excitement. Fimulf ordered all his gunmen to gang up on him, but Kamina pierced them all by extending drills through his mecha, destroying all of them in an instant. When Fimulf hit him with Hell's Blaze from his glaive, Kamina stopped it with his hand, and told Simon to always believe in himself no matter what happened. As he was confused by why he was saying that, Kamina threw his sunglasses toward Fimulf, and after he got trapped by them, he used his ultimate move Giga Drill Break to split open a hole in Byaku. With Fimulf exploding to bits, Kamina said farewell to Simon, and succumbed to his injuries. Everyone couldn't believe that he had died, as even though they had won the decisive battle, they lost something that could never be replaced. Meanwhile, in the city of Tepelin at the Beastmen's headquarters, the Spiral King named Lord Genome learned that one of his 4 generals had died, and the other generals thought that the old geezer must have underestimated his opponents. Since the humans were growing into a bigger threat, Sidamander the Swift asked for Lord Genome's permission to retake Daigunzen, but Adian wanted the king to give her the opportunity instead, as Thymulf was a dear friend to her. Lord Genome was amused that the beings he created had formed feelings of friendship, and gave Adian the opportunity to showcase his power and terror to the humans. The generals went away one by one, and Lord Genome wondered why the humans fought so hard when death was their only destiny. At the same time, Simon was in a fight with gunmen, and telling Kitten to back off, he pulverized the gunman by destroying its face, and smashed it against a rock wall to explode it. Daigunzen was completely in humanity's control 7 days after Kamina's death, but it stopped because they couldn't stabilize its engine output, and Kyo and Rossiu struggled to control their new mechas, as they couldn't get the hang of its power distribution. However, Dayaka told them that they were still impressive, and Ron revealed that they were going to the engine room. They had changed Daigunzen's name to Daigurn because Kamina suggested it, and it had a mecha repairing facility along with fully equipped quarters for the humans, so all they needed to do was get its engine working properly. Gurren was good as new even after all the beating it took thanks to that repairing facility, and Kitten scolded Simon, as they were together in Gurren Lagann. But Simon wouldn't work together with him. He wanted to pilot it himself to shoulder all the burden, so Kitten told him that if he had the same balls of steel in their last fight, Kamina would still be alive. Kyo apologized for what her dumbass brother said, but Simon agreed with him, as he blamed himself for Kamina's death and wanted to grow stronger to take his place. Passing by Rossiu, he asked why that fake god of his didn't save Kamina, and mocked his religion. But he soon realized how rude he was being, and apologized before going to his room to sulk in sadness. Meanwhile, Yoko practiced her marksmanship, while the new pilots that joined them talked about Kitten being their potential new leader, as Simon was unreliable, and making him leader could mean Dai-Guren's doom. When Yoko scolded them, they went away, and she sat together with Dayaka to talk about the other generals of the Spiral King who they would eventually face. Even though it was raining, Yoko was eating a hot meal, and she thought that it was all thanks to Kamina's sacrifice. However, he wasn't the first comrade she lost, and remembered the sacrifices of her friends from Littner that allowed the rest of humanity to prevail. But this time, the hole in her heart wasn't healing like it did before, and she blamed it on Kamina, who had promised to repay the kiss 10 times over, but all he gave her was grief for the remainder of her life. Moments later, when they detected a bunch of gunmen approaching them, Rossiu offered to pilot Guren and combine with Lagan to battle them. Jumping in the middle, Simon knocked a bunch of gunmen with his landing, and wildly attacked them, as he wanted to punish all the gunmen for taking away the most important person in his life. He kept kicking a dead gunman endlessly, and when other mechas attacked them, Rossiu screamed, but Simon reminded him that Kamina never screamed no matter what, and charged toward the enemy with no care for his life. He exploded them away. But when he tried to launch drills through his arm to finish them, Gurren Lagann refused to do his bidding, and started leaking out energy. Unable to control it, Simon freed himself from Gurren, and jumped down a bottomless hole with Lagann. When Kitten asked Rossiu about what happened, he told them that Lagann separated from him after going berserk, and fell into the valley. Waking up after some time, Simon wondered why Lagann's controls didn't respond to him, and after powering it on, he moved up and saw countless metal boxes in a vast empty field. At that instant, he saw a gunman drop another one of those boxes, and when he saw that it had a drill keyhole on it, he used his key to open it, and saw Nia sleeping inside the box. After greeting him, she asked Simon who he was, and got happy seeing that she was finally in the outside world. Her clothes were lavish, and after getting out of the box, she held Simon's face wondering why he was the same as her. She had lived with beastmen her entire life, so when Simon told her that he was a human, she asked what humans were, and wondered if all the humans were the same as Simon. But he told her that all humans are different, and gave her his shoes, so she wouldn't get dirty from the mud. After they introduced themselves to each other, she asked Simon what was behind him, and realizing that she was talking about a gunman, the two ran away, and Nia learned that gunmen were the enemies of humanity. After they went inside Lagann, Simon charged to drill a hole in that ugly mecha's body, but Lagann refused to do as he said, and they got slammed away. As he was wondering why Lagann wouldn't respond to him anymore, the gunman got near them, so he told Nia to run away while he would buy her some time by sacrificing his life, as he was sick of seeing other people die before him. His hands trembled in front of that huge gunman, and seeing that he was terrified, Nia grabbed his hand and ran away with him. However, the gunman launched a missile toward them, but Yoko exploded it mid-air with her rifle, and Kitten used the big pointy head of his mecha to pierce the gunman and slice it in half. Afterward, they all went back to Dai-Guren, and Nia was surprised to see that humans came in all shapes and sizes. She had never seen another human except for his father, and after hearing her story, Dayaka asked her about her village, but she didn't know anything about it, as she never ventured outside before, since her father told her that the outside world was dangerous. However, Nia was kicked out when she angered her father by asking about the reason why she was born, and everyone thought that his father was a rather odd man. Meanwhile, Rossiu heard Simon ask Lagann if he was going to leave him too like Kamina, and wanted to help him out. But Yoko stopped him, as she knew that nothing he would say would help his grieving heart. Suddenly, they were all rocked away by an explosion and saw a huge wall of water surrounding Dai-Guren. Ron asked Simon where he was, but he didn't respond, and Adiana hopped on Dai-Guren's deck on her mecha. Nia recognized her voice, and a clown-looking fellow ordered to shoot her, but she wasted no time destroying the cannons. Yoko and Rossiu rushed to fight with her, and Simon was shocked to see Nia running towards Adiana as well, revealing that she was the first princess and daughter of Spiral King Lord Genome. She used her authority to order Adiana go away. She refused to believe that Nia was a princess, as no princess would go outside the capital, so her underling told her that she was in fact Princess Nia, but Adiana decided to kill her nonetheless, and planned to make it seem like an accident. However, all of their transmissions were being recorded, so after telling the humans that she would come back, Adiana went away. Everyone was suspicious of Nia afterward, and in Tepelen, Lord Genome learned that Adiana fled in the face of the enemy, but she told him that the humans were holding Princess Nia hostage. However, he had long since cast her out, and since she wasn't informed of that development, she begged Lord Genome to give her another chance, and offered to wipe all of humanity by sunrise to prove her loyalty. Lord Genome agreed, but it was the last chance he was giving her, and when she left the throne room, she met Viral. He wanted Adiana to let him accompany her, but she kept hitting his face while he was completing his sentence, and told him to take his ugly, useless, good-for-nothing ass to wherever he came from before going away. Meanwhile in Dai-Guren, Nia sat together with Gimme and Derry to eat lunch while everyone was standing around her, and even fed Dayaka by hand. Kitten barged in out of nowhere to ask why they were all being way nice to her, but Nia was so dumb that she kept smiling. And Kitten told her that he was the leader of Team Dai-Guren. He thought that her being cute didn't change the fact that she was their enemy, but Nia didn't even know what an enemy was, so Kitten explained it to her. However, she didn't understand most of the things he was saying, and kept asking him questions to make it seem like she was interrogating him instead. When Nia praised him, he realized that their conversation was going nowhere, so he asked Simon to get enemy intel out of Nia, since he was the one who brought her there. She had learned that her father was doing terrible things to humans, and was confused as he would never do such things without a reason. But she believed that the people she was now living with weren't bad either. So Simon told her that his father killed the only person in the world that loved him, and she asked him to tell her more about that person. At the same time, while Ron was repairing Dai-Guren, Rossiu asked him if Simon would be alright. But he didn't want to waste his time on him, as if he didn't repair Dai-Guren, more people would die, and knew that the reason Lagan wasn't working was that it didn't feel like helping some kid who had lost his will to survive. Meanwhile, Simon had told Nia everything about Kamina, and realizing how important he was to everyone, she now knew the reason why everyone hated her. But Simon felt like no one harbored any hate for her, as Kamina never fought out of hatred, and only wanted to protect humanity. Roko agreed with Simon, and wanted him to keep talking about Kamina, so Simon told them the story of when he got trapped in his village because of an earthquake. He was terrified because his parents were buried alive the same way, and had lost hope, but Kamina kept pushing him forward with a smile on his face, and it allowed Simon to dig everyone out of danger. If he had given up that day, everyone would have died, but the reason he didn't was Kamina, and because of that, he felt like he couldn't do anything without him, and wanted to become the next Kamina so he could do his share for him. However, he rescued Nia all by himself, and it made her think that she didn't need to obsess over Kamina, as he was fine by himself. Simon thought that she was saying that because she didn't know him, but she couldn't get to know a dead person, and urged Simon to stop relying on someone who wasn't with him anymore. Hearing her say that pissed Yoko, and she blamed Nia for not understanding what Simon was going through. But she knew that Simon wasn't a helpless person that needed to dwell over a dead man. Yoko blamed her for Kamina's death since he died because of her father, but she agreed that no amount of grieving would bring him back, and it would be better if everyone just forget him. But he had left too much of an impact on everyone's life for them to do that. When she went away, Nia told Simon that she had tears in her eyes, and wanted to learn more about humans to better understand their feelings. Sometime later, a scout on top of Dai-Guren saw a tsunami coming their way, and everyone realized that Adiana had come back to take her revenge. However, she asked to talk with Nia, and knowing that they still needed time to repair Dai-Guren, Kitten agreed to send her to deal with the enemy. Simon didn't resonate with that, as he felt that something was wrong, but Nia offered to go, and Yoko told them that she might be able to stop the fight. However, she didn't trust her, and told her that she would have her rifle pointed at her in case she would do anything fishy. Approaching Adiana, she asked if the beastmen were making humans suffer, so she agreed and revealed that they were ordered by Lord Genome to slaughter every last human they found on the surface. Nia was pissed that she didn't harbor a will of their own to realize that they were doing evil deeds, but Adiana believed that humans were just worms, and their existence was insignificant for them to worry about. Hearing this, Nia ordered her to take her to Lord Genome, as she wanted to discuss the matter with him. But Adiana told her that she wasn't a princess anymore since the Spiral King had cast her out, and ordered for her to be killed along with the humans. Hearing that, Simon realized why she was thrown in a valley inside a box, and begged Lagan to work, as he knew that Adiana wasn't there to bring Nia back to the capital. She couldn't believe that her father ordered her to do that, but Adiana gave her a reality check, and got ready to tear her to pieces. However, Nia didn't care about her life, and asked her to spare the humans, as they had done nothing wrong, and just wished to spend their life in peace on the surface. When Adiana mentioned that they had killed Fimolf, Nia told her that the beastmen also hurt someone close to them, and the cycle of hate and death would continue unless they lived in peace. But Adiana couldn't give a single fuck about them, and grabbed her in the claws of her gunmen. So Simon rushed to protect her without Lagan, and everyone also followed him in mechas, as they now knew that she was innocent. Adiana attacked them with her tail, but Yoko stopped it with her rifle, and they all tackled Adiana to free Nia. The rock caught her mid-air, and the others tried to slam Adiana to the ground, but she broke free from their grip, and used a huge whip to slam Zorthi on the ground. Considering all of them third-rate gunman pilots, she told them to come at her together, and had an upper hand against them in the fight. However, when Guren knocked her to the ground, Dai-Guren kicked her away, and broke her spine. As Ron was about to step on her, Viral protected Adiana, and knocked Dai-Guren away. Adiana still wanted to fight despite her injuries, but Viral told her that she could continue to fight as long as she was alive, and vowing to make them all pay, he escaped with her. At Dai-Guren, everyone shouted in happiness since Nia was fine, and she waved her hand to thank all of them. Simon limped away from everyone, and at the same time, Adiana gave Viral a beating for leaving without victory, as she couldn't go to the capital anymore because of her defeat. At the throne room in Tepelin, the Spiral King was informed about Adian's defeat, and Guam requested Lord Genome to let him strike next. The miniature gunman of unknown type in the human's possession concerned him, as it could combine with other gunmen, and exhibited power that it shouldn't possess. The king agreed with him, and since that matter couldn't be taken lightly, he agreed to let him deal with the humans next. Meanwhile at Daigurin, Nia noticed Lagun in a pile of trash, and asked Kitten why Simon's mecha was in there. They told her that he was a lost cause, and turned into a good-for-nothing burden on society, so it would be better if he went back to his underground village. When Nia complained, Yoko said that Daigurin had no place for someone who couldn't even pull his own weight, and asked her to stop coddling Simon, as he needed to snap out of his situation himself. While he was making Kamina's statues by digging into the walls, Nia surprised him, and he asked her if he was crazy. However, she didn't think that he was, as by looking at the detailing on the statues, she could tell how much Kamina meant to him. Back in their village, Simon was known for being efficient at digging tunnels, but everyone made fun of him except Kamina, who always protected him, and he wanted to become like him. Nia changed the topic to distract him, and while she asked if she could stay and watch him dig for longer, an underground village asked for help since they were under attack by gunmen. Kitten wanted to help them instantly, but Ron and the others felt something fishy, as an underground village had the technology to broadcast their message. However, Kamina wouldn't think one bit to rescue them, and Kitten wasn't going to sit idle while hot babes were going to get wiped out, so he ordered everyone to rescue them. When they reached the village, they saw a number of gunmen surrounding the village's entrance, and destroyed a bunch of them with Daigurin's cannon. The rest of the gunmen escaped, and all the girls thanked their saviors for saving them. However, it was all a trap laid out by Guam, and several beastmen with guns held the residents of Daigurin hostage. After they found Nia, she agreed to go with them as long as they didn't hurt Simon, but before she left, she asked Simon not to worry about her and be himself. At the same time, Guam declared himself as one of the Spiral King's 4 generals, and before he imprisoned everyone, he revealed that they would all be executed publicly as a warning to the rest of humanity. Meeting with Nia, he told her that she should have died a painless death in the box, as she didn't matter to the Spiral King. He had lived for thousands of years, so creating and raising children was just a hobby for him, and when he grew tired of one, he would just discard them away like a doll. When Nia asked Lord Genome about the reason for her birth, he started to hate her, as he detested human self-awareness since he thought of them as puppets that didn't need a will of their own. However, Guam thought that Nia was too lovely to kill, and asked if she wanted to become the chief of the all-women village, so could teach them proper etiquette before they were sent to the Spiral King for his amusement. Hearing this, Nia realized that all those girls were just like dolls for her father that he would discard once he grew tired of them, so she slapped Guam away in grief. Meanwhile at the prison, everyone tried to break the earth walls, but they couldn't get through the bedrock no matter what they did. However, Simon was just digging away at the wall without making a sound, and as everyone looked at him in awe, Yoko remembered Kamina telling her that Simon always saved his ass and never gave up. Kamina just acted tough on the surface, and was scared when everyone got trapped in his village because of the earthquake. But when he saw that Simon kept on drilling, he was able to keep up a brave face. Whenever he thought of himself as weak and lost confidence, he would think back at the sight of Simon hunched over and digging away, and it gave him hope. So before he died, he told Simon to believe in himself instead of the Kamina that he believed in. And when Simon realized the meaning of what he said and believed in himself, Lagan came back to him. Meanwhile, Nia asked Guam if he was rushing to find Simon because he was scared of him, and told him that he would always protect her no matter what. To break her strong will, Guama ordered his underlings to find Simon, and planned to execute him first to instill terror in Nia's heart. However, Nia wouldn't allow him to do that, so he pointed a gun at her head and pulled the trigger, but old Coco saved her, and when Simon appeared, she hugged him, and the two of them escaped. Flying in the air, he apologized to Nia, and thanked her for guiding him into becoming a person that he needed to be. Meanwhile, Guam went into his enormous mecha Jember, and projected himself to all human civilizations on the surface to assert the Spiral King's authority. When Rossiu attacked him with Gurren, he grabbed him and started munching on Gurren's leg, so Yoko tried shooting at Jember, but her rifle had no effect. However, just when all hope was lost, Simon came back and asked Rossiu to combine with him, and after the two of them combined into Gurren Lagann, Simon told Guam that his brother might be dead, but he still lived in his heart as part of him. After vowing to be the person that Kamina wanted him to become, he blasted Jember with the drills in his arm, but he came back and hugged him with huge metal spikes sticking out of Jember's body. However, Simon pushed him away by summoning drills through his whole body just like Kamina did, and after holding him in place with huge sunglasses, he used Gurren Lagann's ultimate move Giga Drill Break to explode Jember into bits. All the humans watching the fight rejoiced over his victory, and while Guam survived and ran away, Nia asked Simon to take him to the place where he found her. Because they were all innocent princesses who were thrown away just like her, Nia wanted to give them all a proper burial. By the time of sunset, all of them were placed in their final place of rest, and when Simon gave her a rare gem that he found while digging, everyone accepted Simon as their leader and started roasting him for no reason. Meanwhile, following his defeat, Guam went back to Tepelin, and Sidamander called him a pathetic old geezer for losing to the humans he always mocked. However, Guam didn't want to hear anything from someone who had never set foot outside the capital, and Saitamander asked the Spiral King to let him deal with the humans now. But knowing that Dai-Guren was traveling to Tepelin, it would have to pass through an ocean. An avian would be waiting for them there. At Dai-Guren, Gimme got excited seeing the infinite water puddle, and Kitten called everyone stupid, saying that it was the sea, and it had salty water in it. Kitten's sisters got dressed in swimsuits to go swimming, and he stood in front of them to protect them from the horny gazes and unsheathed Excaliburs of his fellow subordinates. Seeing them, the boys got excited, and thought that they would get to see Yoko in all of her plot-filled glory. But she gave them all a beating, and told them they had no time to slack off, as reaching the capital was their top priority. However, Ron pointed out that they would have to cross the sea to get to Tepelin Palace at the heart of the capital, and since he needed time to prepare Dai-Guren for sea travel, the girls could definitely goof around. The sisters immediately jumped into the sea, and while all the boys rushed to get wet with them, swim with them, they saw Yoko, and wondered why she was showing less plot than usual. She asked them all if their desperation was caused by never feeling the touch of a woman in their whole life, just like the people watching this video, and pointed her rifle at them. However, they got distracted by Nia, and while their horny selves went crazy seeing her, she asked them if she was looking good, not knowing that she was like a goddess to them now. When they swarmed her, Yoko got jealous seeing that she was getting all the attention, and thought that she would get to prove herself better than her in a beach volleyball contest. However, she didn't know that Nia was a 5-time Olympic champion, and the reality hit her hard when she realized that she was no match for her in anything. She continued trying to prove herself better in other games, but Nia got the best of her in every game they would play, and she got mad because she had stolen all the boys away from her. However, despite their fierce competition, Nia brought her some food that she made herself, but Yoko's clumsy ass dropped it, and the boys got mad at her for wasting the blessings of their goddess. When Nia offered to make her food again, Yoko declined in frustration and went away. In the meantime, Ron had readied Dai-Guren for their travels into the sea, and after the last few adjustments were made, the giant mecha went into the sea with a huge paddle in its hands, and Simon ordered to set the course to Tepelin. Everyone was excited seeing fishes swimming near Dai-Guren, but among them were some evil dolphins that carried missiles and shot them toward Dai-Guren. They were launched by Adian's battleship Dai-Gunkai, and she ordered Viral to take command of it, while she would go in her gunman Seirun to teach all those thinking humans a lesson by sinking them to the bottom of the sea. Dai-Guren wildly shot at the sea, but none of the cannons made contact, so to escape from Dai-Gunkai, Dayaka ordered for explosive barrels to be thrown behind their course. However, the enemy battleship was way beneath the sea to be affected by that, and under Viral's orders, it shot 6 torpedoes toward Dai-Guren. They hit the huge mecha from underneath, and Kitten jumped into the sea with no thoughts in his mind, and started to drown, so Ron pulled him out. When Adiana was about to destroy the mecha's lower level, Gimme and Derry rushed to the upper level of Dai-Guren, and barely managed to escape at the last second. She was moving too fast to target with any of their weapons, and with no options left, Ron threw Gurren Lagann into the sea since it was watertight, but Adiana immediately attacked it multiple times in a matter of seconds. She called the humans stupid f***s for challenging her in her ideal domain, and using Dai-Gunkai, Viral grabbed Dai-Guren by its legs, and started pulling it underwater. Rossiu told Simon that they needed to save everyone from drowning, but Adiana had grabbed Gurren Lagann's arms with her claw arms, and was beating the shit out of them. When water seeped inside Dai-Guren, chaos ensued and everyone ran for their lives, but Nia calmed them all down, saying that Simon would come up with something, and save them. Yoko asked what made her so sure about that, but Nia had no reason, and just knew that Simon wouldn't let them die in vain. Dai-Guren's hull started to break in the meantime, as it was way beyond its maximum depth, and knowing that he had to save his friends, Simon broke free from Adiana by destroying her arms with drills, and used a huge drill to swim in the water. As he went to rescue his friends, Adiana chased her, but Gurren Lagann was too fast for her, and none of her attacks affected it anymore. Simon was drilling through the water like it was soil, and Viral shot missiles at him to halt him in his tracks, but he was unaffected, and using the momentum of his mecha, Simon was able to push Dai-Guren out of the ocean. As everyone started screaming in happiness, Adiana hopped on Dai-Guren's deck and took Nia hostage. Because of that, Simon wasn't able to do anything against her, and she ordered everyone to fire at Gurren Lagann if they didn't want her to crush Nia's every bone. However, Yoko pointed her rifle at Seirun, and Adiana told her that she wouldn't be able to make a dent in her mecha, but she managed to destroy her shoulder with her last shot. Freed from her grasp, Nia started falling before old Coco caught her, and when all of Dai-Guren's cannons pointed at Adiana, she warned them that they would kill themselves firing so close. But the mad lads did it anyway, and seeing her under heavy fire, Viral tried to rescue her. But Simon went inside Dai-Gunkai's mouth and destroyed it from the inside by drilling through its body. Adiana exploded into bits and pieces, and with their victory, Dai-Guren rode the huge wave created by the blast to travel to the shore. The news of Adian's death soon reached the Spiral King, and while Viral chastised himself for failing again, Dai-Guren had set foot on land by sunset. Since Yoko's rifle had destroyed her hairstyle, Nia asked her to tidy up her hair, and she gave her a new haircut. While Simon was chilling under the blue sky, Nia asked how she was looking, and he discovered what it meant to be a man for the first time in his life when he saw how beautiful she looked. Sitting with him, Nia told Simon that she wanted to be put to work, as everyone was doing their best to help each other, so she wanted to be useful as well. At that instant, Yoko came and scolded Simon for slacking off on eating meals, and hearing her say that made Nia realize what she needed to do to help everyone. Some time later, Rosyu got ill, and while Ron and Yoko wondered about the reason for his illness, Nia was making food for everyone, and they couldn't wait to eat the food made by their goddess. However, Dai-Guren's alarm went off in that instant, as Saitamander was closing in on them from the skies with his battleship Dai-Guntan. There was a whole fleet of air bombers in his arsenal, and since Rosyu was ill, Yoko offered to pilot Gurren Lagann with Simon. But when she went inside Gurren's cockpit, she realized Kamina used to sit at the same place, and hesitated to enter it. However, Buddha jumped inside her boings to give her courage, and she went inside Gurren. At the same time, Saitamander's air bombs fired rockets at Dai-Guren, and one of them transformed into a gunman to destroy Kyo and Keel's battle room. From the skies, gunmen dropped bombs at Dai-Guren, and all of its outer cannons were destroyed as a result. Seeing the destruction his forces were causing, Saitamander wondered why the other generals struggled to defeat those stupid weak runts. With no option left, Simon told Ron to throw him towards Dai-Guntan, and he destroyed the enemy planes by drilling through them, and used them to get closer to Saitamander. When an airship transformed into a gunman to attack him, he drilled through it, and integrated with Gurren Lagann to get flying capabilities. Meanwhile, Kitten saw Kyo and Keel and gunmans ready to battle the enemy, and all the rest of the pilots followed them, as they didn't intend to die before eating Nia's cooking. In the air, Simon destroyed every enemy on his way while continuing moving toward Dai-Guntan, but Viral stopped him and smacked him in the guts to take his revenge. He thought that Kamina was still inside Gurren Lagann, and as they were battling in the air, Simon struggled to fly properly, as he wasn't used to it. To assist him, Yoko shot at Viral with her rifle, but he punched Gurren Lagann away, causing her to fall toward the enemy ship. Simon rushed to catch her, and when they crashed into the ship's control room, he saw Yoko bleeding from her head and covered in injuries, but she told Simon not to worry about her, and Viral asked them what happened to Kamina. When Simon told him that he was dead, Viral remembered all of their battles, and realized that he was getting his ass handed to him by a little kid. With no other option, Simon piloted Gurren Lagann by himself to protect Yoko, and their battle caused Dai-Guntan to lose its altitude. When Saitamander saw Viral battling Simon in the control room, he got pissed, and Kitten told Ron that they needed to do something to assist them, as they were in the enemy's lair all by themselves. In the control room, Simon blocked all of Viral's attempts to attack him, and kicked him, making Viral wonder why he was losing to a mere teenager. Simon knocked him away, and as they continued battling it on, Yoko finally acknowledged that Simon could pilot Gurren Lagann all by himself. Out of nowhere, Saitamander held Yoko hostage with his gunman Shuzak, and told Viral to finish Simon, who blamed him for always fighting dirty. At the same time, Dai-Guren was working at its full capacity, and started moving towards a cliff at full speed to attack Dai-Guntan. Meanwhile, Viral refused to attack Simon, as he didn't want to win that way, and Saitamander got ready to kill Yoko, but Dai-Guren jumped in the air using the cliff, and attacked the ship. However, the first attack missed its mark, but they were able to reroute to Dai-Guren to kick Saitamander. The attack allowed Simon to carry Yoko to safety, and Ron got his hands on one of Dai-Guntan's devices that allowed it to fly. With the damage received to Dai-Guntan, it couldn't engage with the enemy anymore, and Saitamander threatened to make Viral pay for what he did. Simon saw the enemy ship retreating, and seeing how manly he had become, Yoko was in awe of him, and asked if he knew that she had a thing for Kamina, so he told her that he was already aware. Because of her injuries, Ron ordered Yoko to rest for some time, and Nia came with flowers to check how she was doing. Simon's stomach growled at that moment, so he went away with her to eat dinner, while Rosyu rushed to the toilet, and revealed that Nia had asked him to be her dish tester. All of her dishes tasted like garbage, but since she looked happy while she was cooking, he couldn't bring himself to tell her that her cooking was shit, and sampled every last dish. He got sick because of that, and the same happened to everyone else who ate her cooking. But Simon emptied a dozen plates by himself, and thought that her food was delicious. At the same time in Tepelin, Saitamander put the blame of the mission's failure on Viral, and asked the Spiral King to sentence him to death. Viral would gladly die if Lord Genome wanted him to, but before that happened, he asked if the humans were truly inferior to the Beastmen, and wondered what they were exactly. So the Spiral King ordered Saitamander to go away, and told Viral that beastmen were imperfect creatures like all other living beings, and maintained their powerful bodies by going into death-like sleep that gave time to their cells to rejuvenate. Since Spiral King created the beastmen, Viral asked him why he gave them flawed bodies, but Lord Genome didn't answer his question, and asked if he wanted to learn what humans truly were. A month had passed since that time, and before their defining battle, Simon went to Kamina's grave, and promised to come back after their battle with the Spiral King. When he and Yoko went back to everyone, he learned that Ron had managed to transform Dai-Gurren by giving it flying capabilities, and they thought that they needed to give everything in their next battle, as they had suffered severe losses during the past month. They were camping for 6 days close to the spiral city of Tepelin, and inside it, the Spiral King told his generals that the god created the world in 7 days, and created humanity on the 6th day. Since it was the 6th day of humanity's invasion on Tepelin, Guam considered it a perfect opportunity to destroy them, and Saitamander told him that Dai-Gunten would take the lead on the next attack. Guam thought that all of this was just an exciting game for Saitamander, and praised humanity's ability to sprout again like weeds no matter how much they stomped on them. The Spiral King considered humans terrifying for exactly that reason, as he had confined all of them to the depths of Earth, so they would never come to the surface, but the power of the spiral allowed them to come that far. A few hours later, Dai-Gunten had reached the battlefield again, and Dai-Gurren flew in the air to dodge its barrage of missiles. As a result, Saitamander ordered the bomber gunmen squadrons to attack them, and Dai-Gurren attacked them with cannons. But all of their attacks missed, so the gunmen pilots got ready to deal with the airships, and Dai-Gurren threw all of them towards the enemy. However, unlike last time, they could fly now, and when Simon and Rossiu joined them with Gurren Lagann, Kitten ordered them to deal with the battleship while they would fight the enemy gunmen. The explosions that followed from their fight shook the sky, and as all the others were watching the fight from Dai-Gurren, Guam used his battleship Dai-Gundo and troops to attack them. Because of Dai-Gurren's huge size, they couldn't escape the fire, and the gunmen pilots couldn't get back to help them because they were in the middle of a fight. However, after destroying an enemy gunman, Simon told everyone to protect Dai-Gurren while he would fight Saitamander's forces himself, as they needed the huge mecha to deal with the behemoth city of Tepelin. Although Kitten complained at first, all of them retreated eventually, and Saitamander called the humans foolish for leaving the fight to a single gunman. But by powering up his mecha to the maximum, Simon was able to destroy the whole enemy gunman fleet with a single attack by shooting explosive drills at them. However, he was exhausted as he used too much of his energy and told Rossiu to deal with the enemy for the time being. He maneuvered Gurren Lagann to evade the enemy missiles and got hit by a nuke, but he lobbed it back towards another nuke that Saitamander fired, and a huge explosion happened because of their impact. Using the fire smoke as a cover, several gunmen managed to capture Gurren Lagann, and Aratenburo fired cannons to help him, but the enemy gunmen used their bodies as shields to tank them. With Gurren Lagann held in place, Saitamander approached them to slice the mecha in half, but he was attacked by an army from the ground. They were the humans of different villages carrying Kamina's flag who had seen the transmission of Simon defeating Guam, and it gave them all hope to capture enemy gunmen for themselves, so they could assist everyone in humanity's decisive battle. The firepower from the allied army along with the cannons from Dai-Gurren destroyed Saitamander's fleet, and he had no option but to retreat. However, he decided to fight it out, and transformed Shuzak into an abomination, but Dai-Gurren silenced it in half with its huge body and exploded him along with his battleship. Because of their attack, Dai-Gunten erupted in flames, and its wreckage fell on Guam's battleship. But it had no effect whatsoever on Dai-Gundo because of its thick armor plating. Following that blast, Guam retreated towards Tepelin, and getting underneath it, Dai-Gundo started spinning at high speed, and combined with Tepelin to create a catastrophic typhoon to blow away the allied forces. This was Guam's ultimate attack carousel of death to wipe all traces of humans from the surface, and Ron revealed that they couldn't get close to Tepelin until they stopped Dai-Gundo. However, the leader of the allied forces charged in like a madman, and after he exploded to bits, his dumbass troops started doing the same. Sonia ordered them all to stop by projecting herself into the battlefield, and told them that a tornado was surrounding Tepelin, and everyone who would approach it would blow up. Because of that, she wanted all of them to be patient, as she believed that Simon's drill could break through the heavens, and he would definitely stop Dai-Gundo with it. Following her speech, everyone wondered where he was, and learned that he was drilling through the earth to attack Dai-Gundo from underneath. However, he couldn't penetrate its thick armor, and only managed to lift it up in the air. But Simon didn't lose hope, and used Gurren Lagann's full power to try to drill through it. Realizing that this could turn bad, Dai-Gundo slammed back into the ground to stop him, and everyone thought that Simon was crushed underneath it. But the impact actually drove the tip of Simon's drill inside Dai-Gundo. Before long, he was able to stop Guam's battleship, and started spinning it in the opposite direction to destroy it. Kitten thought that the son of a bitch finally defeated the enemy, but huge buildings started to fall on the ground from Tepelin at that instant, and when Simon looked at the city, he saw a huge face forming on top of it. With an uncountable number of buildings falling to the ground, Dai-Gurren rushed to get out of harm's way, but it got hit by one, and seeing Kitten and the others running to safety, Rossiu told Simon that they needed to do the same. So they flew away, and while Simon saw his allies getting destroyed, Ron looked at Tepelin, and couldn't believe that it was a huge mecha all along. On top of that, they also detected a peculiar signal coming from Tepelin, and its reading was completely identical to Gurren Lagann. Hearing this, Simon soared through the sky to fly above the clouds, and saw the Spiral King on top of the gunman city of Tepelin. When Nia confirmed that he was indeed her father, Simon rushed toward him with his drill, but Lord Genome stopped him with the tip of Tepelin's finger. However, Simon kept using the full power of Gurren Lagann to push it back. But with the flip of his finger, the Spiral King knocked him away, and as he was spinning in the air, Ron caught him with Dai Gurren. His drill couldn't penetrate through Tepelin's thick armor plating, so Nia requested Simon to take her to her father, saying that she might succeed in making him stop his maddening rampage. Rossiu didn't agree with it, but when Ron told him that a girl never changed his mind after deciding on something, they agreed to take her. While Kitten and the rest of the gunmen pilots got ready to join them as well, Tepelin released thousands of gunmen, and all the troops came forth to fight them. Kitten wanted Simon to go straight for the Spiral King while they would open a path for him using Dai Gurren, so when Nia hopped on Simon's lap, all of humanity's forces charged toward the enemy. Kitten valiantly went first on the battlefield to destroy a number of gunmen by himself, while Eratenburo fired Dai Gurren's cannons at the enemy, and it allowed the rest of humanity's soldiers to push forward. Traveling at maximum speed, Dai Gurren charged toward the Spiral King with Gurren Lagann on top of it, and Lord Genome slammed them with a celestial hammer, but they were able to get through it using cannons and drills before crashing right into the throne room. Although their charge allowed Gurren Lagann to get inside, Dai Gurren ran out of gas, and Simon was worried for everyone inside it. But Dayaka and Yoko told him to focus on his mission, so when he went to engage the Spiral King, everyone escaped from Dai Gurren before self-destructing it, and destroyed the Celestial Hammer. Face to face with his nemesis, Simon's awaited battle was interrupted when Viral intervened, and charged at Gurren Lagann with 4 katanas in his hands. Attacking Simon relentlessly, he revealed that Spiral King had given him a new body that could never die. But Simon was still able to overpower him, and punched him away. As Viral was wondering why he was getting defeated despite his new powers, Simon punched him with the drills on his arm, and Spiral King told Viral that his new power wasn't meant to overcome humans. While Simon slammed him away against a wall, the Spiral King revealed that Viral had no chance against a human who had acquired the power of the Spiral, but he still gave him an undying body nonetheless, so he could become a storyteller of the Spiral King's victory for all eternity. As he continued rambling on about how great he was, Nia appeared from Gurren Lagann, and asked why he was killing the humans who stepped on the surface. However, the Spiral King called her ignorant, as he believed that he was protecting the world as the guardian of humanity from a threat that no human understood as of yet. The underground world he had created was the only path to ensure humanity's survival, and since Nia and Simon were setting humanity on a path of destruction, he attacked his own daughter. However, Simon protected her, and converting his harem girls into a drill, the Spiral King used them to power up his mecha Lazengan, and it possessed the power of Spiral just like Gurren Lagann. Seeing Lazengan, Simon and Rossiu realized that they were getting the readings of Spiral King's mecha because of it, and he jumped in the air to attack them. However, Simon leaped behind to dodge it, but Lord Genome quickly gained the upper hand and kicked them away. Just when Gurren Lagann got up, the Spiral King attacked it again, and as they were battling it out, Lord Genome revealed that there was another man who fought like Simon. But just like him, he was also unaware that he was pushing humanity to extinction. When Spiral King kicked Gurren Lagann away, Simon blocked his following attacks, and trapped him in huge sunglasses to try to decimate him with his ultimate Giga Drill Break move. However, the Spiral King destroyed his drill with Lazengan's sharp teeth, and pierced Gurren Lagann's whole body with drills to slam it against a wall. Rossiu had lost all hope because of the difference in their powers, but Simon told him that Team Dai Gurren was famous for making the impossible possible, and managed to destroy Lazengan's arm with his drill. However, the Spiral King almost split Rossiu in two with his counterattack, and when he caught Lord Genome, Simon separated from Gurren. The Spiral King slammed Gurren away, and when Simon tried to combine with Lazengan, he got caught mid-air, but got away by exploding its hand. With no options left, he used all of Lagan's powers, and attacked Lazengan's huge drill with his tiny mecha. Because of the power of plot armor and friendship, he was able to break Lazengan's drill, so Spiral King exited his mecha to battle Simon himself. After punching him a few times, he slammed Lagann on the ground, and when Nia regained consciousness, she saw Simon fighting the Spiral King neck on neck even when his whole body was covered in wounds. She told Simon that she believed in him, and begged him to win, but the Spiral King destroyed Lagan's arm, and lifted Simon by his hair. However, the little rascal pierced his chest with the tiny drill key, and used the power of the spiral to blast open a hole on Spiral King's chest. He finally accepted his defeat, but before he passed away, he gave Simon a warning, revealing that when the population of humans would exceed 1 million, the moon would become a messenger for the gods of all universes, and destroy the world of Spiral. When Simon asked what he meant by all that, he refused to elaborate further and fell to his death. Nia said farewell to her father, and at that instant, the ground beneath them suddenly started to shake, as following the Spiral King's defeat, the gigantic Tepelin gunmen started crumbling, and all the gunmen under the Spiral King's control were also immobilized. Seeing the Tepelin mecha breaking down, Yoko wondered if Simon was alright, so when Gurren Lagann appeared, everyone smiled in happiness, and welcomed the saviors of humanity. When Nia hugged Simon, the light of the new day illuminated the whole world, and humanity was finally free on the 7th day of their final battle. Set your heart ablaze, go beyond your limits, and watch this next video.